We must be against the endless wars, the pointless wars, the regime change wars, the countless foreign wars. This is how we save America. Nationalism is the future. Our party, our politicians, our personalities are just beginning to scratch the surface of realizing this change. New leaders are emerging like J.D. Vance, Blake Masters, Matt Gaetz, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Carrie Lake, and of course, Tucker Carlson. But they are just the beginning. Today, we are not going to be talking about personalities and politicians, but the actual policies which our movement must center around in order to save our country. The first policy our movement must focus on is implementing an immigration moratorium. Almost all Republicans agree that illegal immigration is a problem, but the emerging split in our party going forward is over how much we must limit legal immigration as well. Republican senators like Lindsey Graham and Marco Rubio love legal immigration, famously backing the idea that we should staple a green card to the back of every STEM diploma earned by a foreign national. First of all, this is completely unsustainable, and second of all, this leads to American students who worked hard to earn those degrees being screwed in the long run in a crowded labor market where foreign nationals willing to work for far less, since it's still much more than they'd make in their own countries. This hurts Americans financially, making it harder to start families on a single income, and most of all, it is a terrible idea which we should not allow to be a part of our movement going forward. But this is not the main problem with mass legal immigration, only a side issue. The true problem is that we have no unified culture anymore. Each time America has taken on a period of relatively open immigration, it was followed by a period of restricted immigration. From 1880 to 1920, there was a period of mass migration, which saw millions of immigrants come from Central, Eastern, and Southern Europe. Followed by that, though, was the Immigration Act of 1924, which limited immigration significantly, so much so that by the 1950s, most immigrant cultures had assimilated, giving us what we now know as the stereotypical 1950s American culture. The common saying is that America is a melting pot, and that immigration adds new flavors to the pot. But the problem is, a melting pot needs time to settle. We need time for the flavors to get to know each other and reflect a common palate. America today is not a melting pot, but a salad full of conflicting flavors. How can you have a cohesive culture when 13% of Americans, 41 million Americans, speak Spanish as their primary language? Close to 8.3% of them do not speak English at all. It's time we secure our border and take a break from mass immigration altogether. 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, our country needs an immigration moratorium. Our country needs to become cohesive again. America must be American again. Next up, economic issues may not be the most exciting, but the social repercussions of economic nationalism make it vital to the future of our movement. We need self-reliance. Tariffs are the first part of this, of course. Free markets do not work while other nations cheat. China uses practical slave labor while we pay our employees livable wages. Of course, it's cheaper for companies to produce goods using slave labor in foreign countries, but it's immoral. Not only are jobs being taken away from American citizens, but we are enabling slavery by just keeping it off our own shores. We need to bring home manufacturing. How did America win the world wars? It was not simply because we had the best soldiers in the world. It was our ability to activate the manufacturing heart of our country. We used to make things here, but now only 11% of US GDP is from manufacturing. That's pathetic. But not only that, it's also a national security risk. We cannot be reliant on China for the essentials. We cannot be sovereign while reliant on other major nations. This was clear during the pandemic when we were reliant on China for ventilators and PPE, and it is evident in Europe now, where they are dependent on Russia while trying to fight with Russia over Ukraine. It's completely incoherent. Manufacturing is also essential to the American dream. Men used to be able to support their families with a good paying manufacturing job without the necessity of a college degree. Families were able to be families, not just sleeping quarters. Moms were able to afford to stay home and be moms. Dads were able to produce for their kids and spend time with them. And small businesses were able to grow and serve as a means to build generational wealth within your family. We also need to unleash American energy. Under Trump, we were energy independent. We were producing a surplus of oil and natural gas here on our own American soil. But under the woke Brandon regime, they shut down the Keystone XL pipeline. They limited fracking and drilling on federal land, all in the name of the climate regime. Now we are again forced to buy oil from OPEC in the Middle East, giving them incredible leverage over us and over Europe in a time when withholding energy has become a bargaining chip in war. The weakening of American sovereignty is treason, and it has to stop. America must be sovereign again. Next up, we need to do something about big tech. As proposed by Senator Josh Hawley and echoed by Senate candidate Blake Masters, we need a digital Bill of Rights. We need to enshrine the same First Amendment protections that apply in the physical town square to the new town square in the digital world. First thing that needs to be mentioned is that we need to repeal the Section 230 immunities that these companies currently enjoy, which are meant to protect neutral platforms. Unfortunately, these companies do not act like neutral platforms. They act like publishers. And if they want to act like publishers, then they should be subjected to the same laws and potential lawsuits that publishers are subjected to. Going forward, we need to treat these companies like common carriers. Just as Verizon and T-Mobile cannot discriminate against you for your political beliefs, why should Facebook and Twitter be allowed to? A right to voice your opinion on neutral platforms is essential for the 21st century to operate. Lastly, Congress must exercise its powers of oversight and, if need be, antitrust against these companies. Teddy Roosevelt, the great bull moose, exercised trust busting against the robber barons of the earliest 20th century for far less than the abuses that these companies have been getting away with today. Josh Hawley understands this. Blake Masters understands this. J.D. Vance understands this. We must get the rest of the GOP and the country to understand this as well. It is time for the Republican Party to become the party of trust busting again.
The Republican Party, once upon a time, we were the party of trust busters. You know it? I mean, we invented the concept, basically. It's time to reclaim that legacy.
Americans have a right to be protected not just from government tyranny, but from corporate tyranny as well. And at a time when some big tech corporations are exerting levels of influence that rival the state itself, action must be taken. America must have liberty again. The foreign policy mindset on the right is probably the largest change our movement has to push through at the GOP national level. We can no longer be the interventionist party we've been the last 80 years, the party of the Bushes, Cheneys, and McCains. We must embrace America First foreign policy that was fought for by the Republican Party leading up until World War II. Not a completely isolationist foreign policy. We are not anti-war in a weak context of being scared of conflict. No, that has never been the American way. We must be against the endless wars, the pointless wars, the regime change wars, the countless foreign wars. When attacked, we defend. When threatened, we threaten back. When unprovoked, we should not provoke. When there is no tangible benefit to the United States of America, America should not be fighting a war. We should not be a part of NATO. We should pick our own battles on our own terms. World War I was started by the insanity of massive mutual defense treaties. But the modern world seems to have forgotten that lesson. NATO currently has 30 member states, with a line of new countries attempting to join. Do you think most Americans can even name 30 countries off the top of their head? Because I'm not sure that they can. America is now in talks to develop a Pacific counterpart to NATO aligned against China. Are we going to have another 30 countries that we're defending for free? Not to mention our defense of Israel already, which we spend millions of dollars on every year. Why should American blood and American taxpayer dollars be sacrificed to protect every other country in the world? Why do we pay to be the world's police? Because it keeps the rich and powerful? Rich and powerful. The military-industrial complex pays the PACs that keep the congressmen in power who ensure the defense contractors keep getting their paychecks. Go too long without starting a new foreign war, and you will upset this balance. And this will piss off the establishment. This is part of why they hated Donald Trump. Donald Trump, the first president not to start a new foreign conflict in decades. That is part of why they really hated him. America deserves peace. I'm 22 years old, and America has been at war my whole life. It needs to stop. We should only be at war to protect and defend the United States of America. Let the rest of the world learn how to protect and defend itself. Stop spilling patriot blood in vain like we did in Afghanistan, like we have done in Vietnam, and we're trying to do in Ukraine today. America must have peace again. Lastly, we are in dire need of natalist policy. Our country is dying, and we aren't having enough kids to keep the population afloat. Currently, this type of policy has been completely unattainable in modern America. If you mention it as a candidate, millions of dollars in PAC money will be in your opponent's race the next day. The left hates it because they want to replace the Native American population through immigration, and the right hates it because they shout socialism and big government whenever it is mentioned. This is not a negotiation. Our country, along with the rest of Western civilization, will grow old and die if we don't start taking this seriously. Overpopulation is a myth. We are about to witness the greatest population collapse since the bubonic plague in the Middle Ages. Pat Buchanan agrees, even Elon Musk agrees. We must look to countries like Hungary, Poland, and Russia at how they are encouraging people to settle down and start families again. They know the dangers of a dying population. They do not want to be replaced by foreign populations, by people from Asia and the Middle East and Africa moving up into Europe and replacing their ancestral homeland. Those cathedrals that they built, those towns, those civilizations that they built, gone forever. I've already made a video discussing natalism in more depth. I'll put a link to that in the description below. But I do have to say this. This topic cannot wait 20 years to be acted upon. It takes about 20 years to feel any effects of what we do right now. There is some hope with the very religious people having large families as a form of counterculture today, but this lifestyle must spread and become more mainstream again before it is too late. America must have children again. These 5 pillars are central to the success of our movement going forward, and we must strive to find candidates and leaders who will support the continued progression of these goals. We have to build a movement from the ground up. So talk about these ideas with your families, your local communities, anyone you have influence over. This is how we save America. We need leaders at the national level, yes, in Congress, in the Senate, and in the White House, championing these ideas. But before we can get there, before we can lead this country, they must be championed at the local level. Local leaders need to promote these ideas, enact lower-level iterations of them where possible, to spread these ideas among the voter base and slowly build the new establishment, the new coalition that will one day replace the rhinos in Washington. We have to look at the big picture, the long run, the long march through the institutions. Not just live national election to national election, because that is not what our enemies do. They look at the big picture. We must start doing the same. This is Nationalist November. I hope you enjoyed that video, and if you did, please hit the like button, share the video with a friend, and don't forget to subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. God bless.